Now this is question and answer, Ask Wendy, volume 18. When I started this little segment, I didn't know how popular it would be. It turned out to be more popular than I ever expected. And on today's video, we have some really useful information to share from a wide variety of people around the world and various opinions on how things should be done and what products are better than what other products. We're going to try to share that information. And keep in mind, in the world of motorcycling, it's a very eclectic group. Some people like a certain bike, a certain type of bike, and we try to cater to everybody. There's nobody that's excluded from our group. If it has two wheels, maybe even a bicycle. We love vehicles with two wheels. That's it. Now on today's question and answer video, we're going to try to answer some of the questions pertaining to the comments that come in on our channel. We've had some really informative, good information to share. We have a couple of funny stories. And there's an incredible story about a GS 1100 restoration that took 14 years. There's a lot of cool stuff. I'll throw in a couple little funny stories that I know were maybe you haven't heard yet. Maybe you've heard them and then you can just say that I repeat too much. But anyway, let's get started. We got a lot of stuff to share today. So the first question today, and it's something that I have dealt with myself, Luciano, basically everybody I know, Joe Padula has dealt with this. We have a gas tank that's rusted out at the bottom. Well, keep in mind, this is a common thing when you restore older motorcycles. Probably the first thing you should check if you're thinking of buying an older bike is that it holds gas. Not kidding about that either. Anyway, the reason I brought this up, Mark Morgan, and it was good to reconnect with Mark after a while. He's been on the road working. I think he's down in Virginia or Washington, but I'm not sure. This is an important thing. He had a tank that's rusted out at the bottom, and it's got pinholes, and it's leaking fuel. Now, he's restoring. This is a two-stroke, very old bike, a collector bike. You just can't go get parts at Partzilla or anywhere, because these bikes were only sold in Japan. Luciano's got one that he got from Mark, and Mark has the other one, NS Honda. This is good information. This is the kind of thing we try to share on our channel. It's a steel tank. What's the first thing you want to do is clean off all the rust, all bound to bare metal. The choices are you can buy various products that will seal that are made from vinyl ester, and they're like JB Weld. I don't know the name, the reason I don't want to recommend any is I've never used them. I have a different method that I use that's worked very well for me. Fixing pinholes. Now this is not a crack that's 6 inches long. A pinhole, very difficult to do, but here's the product. Stay Bright Silver Solder, which you can use a soldering iron. You're gonna lose the paint in an area the size of maybe a silver dollar, but I assume you're gonna repaint the tank anyway, and I know in Mark's case he is. But let me just share this information because it's information. I know a lot of people that are restoring old bikes are gonna have this problem, but look at it online. It's not real expensive either. Stay Bright Silver Solder. The flux is sulfuric acid, so there's a couple of do's and don'ts. I used this for many years in model aviation to fix gas tanks. It's perfect for that. It's perfect to solder things that need to be soldered. There's a couple of caveats. Number one, it melts at 410 degrees. It's not like if you braise a tank, you've got to get it cherry red almost. Stay Bright Silver Solder, it'll melt at 410 they say. So the idea is if you have a MAP gas torch, just roughly heat the area, get it warm, and then take an ordinary Weller soldering iron. And the trick with a Weller soldering iron is don't pull the trigger all the way back. Its maximum heat is the first click out. Check, and I didn't know that until John Parthia told me that. That'll let it flow. Now you put the acid on, let it flow. It's really good stuff. Now when you're all done, you've got to wipe it with baking soda and water. But that will seal a tank, and that will last a lot better than Bondo. Bondo, first of all, lasts one afternoon. JB Weld probably will last some amount of time before it lets go. Another little bit of information, and I want to pass information on. It's right appropriate for this. When I was at Bob V's, he was telling me about his Triumph has a tank that when you're done riding a bike, you have to take the gas out. And I said, I know what that problem is. Yeah, take a wild guess how I know. The only way you can make a gas tank that's going to hold gas is you have to have a resin that's certified to be exposed to gasoline. And in the epoxy world, I think there are some variations, but there's one that works every time. It's called vinyl ester. Vinyl ester is what they make the big fuel tanks that go on the ground, and they're certified by the government. So, but I don't know how expensive it is. I've never used it, but I know other people have, and it's expensive material. It's not like you could just go to Lowe's and buy a shot glass of it. Anyway, I have heard from people that have boats. I want to check this off. I want to share this information. People that have boats and rail, remember this. There's a material called, you can buy in West Marine, or you can buy it online, Marine Tex, T-E-X. That material, I think, is certified to fix engine blocks. So you would think if it's certified for engine blocks, but the one thing not to do is do a Band-Aid approach. If you're going to repaint the tank, fix the hole. And while you have the tank upside down, take a little ball peen hammer and go boop, 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 boop. Because maybe you're going to fix this, repaint the tank, and right here there's a weak spot. So maybe you want to address that whole thing. And for sure, when you're dealing with rust, get all the rust off before you put any solder, any material on. And fixing an old tank, it's almost a given. There's all kind of stuff you can put in the tank, and all kind of. I have done it with mixed results. Luciano's done it. There's various products that work real well. I'm not getting into that. I like to, if it's a metal tank, I like to use the Stay Bright silver solder. And if it was another choice, if you have access to brazing materials and stuff like that, but an average person can just buy that Stay Bright solder and fix a pinhole. And I've done it. It seems to hold up real well. My FCR has a pinhole in the bottom of the tank that I did with silver solder over 10 years ago. And when I did the restoration on it, there was no leaking at that area at all. So this is from our friend John. Now, this is an incredible story. I read this email. He sent me a lengthy email, a bunch of photos, and I'll share them, of course, and a video. This is an unbelievable story. The story starts with his dad bought a new GS 1100E, and I hope I don't get any of this wrong. Keep in mind, I take notes, so and I'm not a professional secretary or anything. And he was looking for a parts bike. Well, we're all looking for a parts bike, and he found one. Okay, that's not an unusual thing. And he got it, worked on it for a while, cleaned up the carbs, did the wires, did the cleanup, did all the stuff you need to do, and he actually repainted it red so he'd have one tan one and one red one. And wait till you see the pictures of this. And he went down, and this is funny, he went down to register the bike, and he knew the serial numbers were good. And the guy looked at him and said, the serial numbers, this is not possible. You have the serial number before it. Let's pretend it's 3003 and 004. These two bikes were made sequentially, and the numbers matched sequentially too. So, but eventually the guy gave him the plate and everything. So I thought that was funny. But then the killer of the story is, he said it took him 14 years to do this. And then when I looked at the pictures up close, he did a beautiful job, believe me. This is really world-class stuff. Now, he's very happy. In the past, we've emailed back and forth over and over again. But the GS is in his family blood. He's got one champagne and one red now. And when he did the repaint, he got a graphics kit. And thank you, John Pothia. He made me the graphics for my restoration. And this is the kind of story that when you're into older bikes and historic bikes, absolutely beautiful. And this is the kind of stuff, boy, no way can you make it up. To have two of them in sequential numbers like that. Now I have two that are a year apart. One's actually an 83. And I don't know how that worked out because I bought the bike as a parts bike. But anyway, let me share these pictures. Pretty neat stuff. This is a really high quality 14-year restoration. Congratulations, John. Now, if you're a lover of GSs as I am, you could look this over. This is really a nice restoration. And 14 years, that's a labor of love. And ask me how I know about labor of love. And look how nice the wheels are. Everything, every part of it is whistle clean, polished, and the seat doesn't look like it had, well, it might be a replacement seat. I guess it is. And everything's whistle clean. There's no rust or anything on it anywhere. And keep in mind, these are 40-year-old motorcycles. And in 40 years, a lot of things can need attention. But anyway, I am so impressed. Even with the video, you can hear it running with the 4-into-1 exhaust. And I remember having the helmet. When you bought this bike, it came with the matching helmet. Now, there's some good information right here. This is from a fellow named Andy. His handle is stuck in the 80s, and I made fun of him in the past. I'm stuck in the 40s. Maybe we're all stuck somewhere, I don't know. But anyway, stuck in the 80s, Andy. And he's in England. So, and I shared with him that I have been in England, and I get to see a lot of the motorcycles and go to the York Museum and Duxford and everything. But anyway, we have since become kind of good email friends. He sent me a bunch of photos of his bikes, and they're pretty cool. I'm going to share them, of course. But there's one thing he had mentioned to me. He just recently got a GoPro, and he's thinking about editing it, and not familiar with the camera yet, not familiar with the editing. And I thought, wow, the best advice I can give anybody, if you have a GoPro and you want to edit it and post something up on YouTube, and obviously send me the link, it seems intimidating the first time you do it. You've got the GoPro and you go load the files, but I did something, and I'll just share this real quick. I did something years ago that John Pothier suggested I make a YouTube channel to share the videos. It was actually his idea, and he walked me through the simple thing of taking the camera, plugging it into the computer, and loading the files to the YouTube edit program. The simple version was, in an hour you can be editing video and posting it, because you're already on YouTube too, so it's really easy. But what I did, and my daughter is a professional video editor. She worked in the industry for many years. And at the time when I started, this is how funny this is, I asked her, I said, Stace, can you come over one day and show me how to edit video? And she said, Wendy, it's involved. There's already layers and this and that, and you'll never learn it. You know, you're a motorcycle mechanic or a painter or whatever you are, or cranky grandpa, I guess. But anyway, I said, okay, thank you. And John Pothier and I fooled around on a thing, and by the end of the day, I had a video on YouTube. And to this day, I remember sending it to her and saying, do you like me now? But anyway, and she reminds me of that. But anyway, what I didn't realize was she was editing at a professional level where to do a 30 seconds of video, it takes an 8-hour shift. I'm not at that level. But the YouTube program, if you're editing for the first time, and you have a GoPro, post something up, put the camera on your helmet or your face or the fender of your bike or something. You'll really enjoy it, and it doesn't cost a penny to share it with your friends. Anyway, I don't want to belabor this, but Andy, these are the photos that Andy sent in. Quite a cool collection of bikes. Very cool. Let me share those photos now. Now, these are the pictures that Andy sent, stuck in the 80s, and he really has a love of 80s bikes. I can really relate to that. Now, he's in England, and when I look at these, hey, here's one I'd really like to have in my collection. I bet Luciano would too. And he had a TZ250. But anyway, this is a beautiful, beautiful collection of stuff, and Luciano is working on our Kawasaki restoration as this goes to print. We haven't gotten any pictures of it yet from him. And this one looks really beautiful. Now, several people I know have beautifully restored Kawasaki's that the list could go on and on. Very, very popular collector bike. And Thomas Luciano has one that's a turbo that's just to die for. I think he has two of them, in fact. And as I look at this, boy, oh boy, does this bring back memories. And I know it must be just a blast restoring this bike. This is something you dream about while you're twisting the wrenches. And look at this. This is really a nice shape. Hey, thank you guys. Thank you everybody who has shared their passion for motorcycling. Now, I've gotten absolutely several questions like this that I don't have an answer for, and I don't want to have an answer for. I won't even mention the guy's name, but I've had this from many other people. And somebody said, you know, why don't you take your MT-09 and compare it to the Triumph, the triple? I don't think it's a valid comparison. It's like anything in life. It's what works for you. And supposing I take my MT-09 and I like it better than the Triumph for whatever reason, more comfortable, more power, faster, slower, better brakes. I'm not going to trade my bike in because Karen bought it for my birthday. Or a lot of times, you know, there's a deal breaker in there. I like the Yamaha, or I like the Triumph. People that like the Triumph. Now the Jot told me, and the Jot had a slew of Ducatis. He had collector bikes. He had beautiful stuff. He bought a Triumph triple, and he said everything else is Tell-Time Rabbit. He loved that Triumph triple. Well, I don't want to compare two things. The people that do that on TV, to me, it's I often wonder what their motives are, and it's in the eye of the beholder, and it's what works for you. Now, for what works for one person, it's not going to work for me. You can pick who you want to compare that to, but I try on my channel not to get it into comparing better and worse. They're different. They're not better, they're not worse. You could have an old RD like I have, an old rust bucket, and you enjoy every minute you're in the saddle. Another guy buys the most expensive sport bike there is, and he's unhappy because the switches stick or something, or it wears out the tires too fast, or he goes for a valve adjustment, and I heard this, it's $2,300 to adjust the valves. I'll take the RD. But anyway, it's in the eye of the beholder, and there's so much of life that's in the eye of the beholder that it's scary. It's scary that people don't get that they somehow miss the point. Now, a good example of that is, years ago, 10 years ago, maybe more, Karen and I were refinishing furniture. We refinished a white marble table so that the veins in the marble matched the furniture. Karen's a trained artist. She's got many years of training, private lessons, the whole thing. And she picks the stuff that suits her. She doesn't look online at a magazine, oh, that's how I do it. She picks what she likes. And she's gotten me to understand that all artists do that. So, and I got all these nasty comments from women and from teenagers, and you ruined the furniture, it looked better this way. That's fine. It's okay to have your opinion. But you do that to the table in your house, I'll do this to the table in my house. And it's the same thing with bikes. If you decide you have a bike, you want to paint it red, you want to paint it blue, you want to paint it green, whatever. Now, when I had my first H1, I custom painted it. And some of the people that were friends of mine, you ruined the bike. Oh, it's not stock now. No, it doesn't have, Then I changed the handlebars and put drag bars on. Oh, you ruined the bike. Oh, it doesn't do this, it doesn't. But the point is, it's my bike. And it's always to keep in mind, whatever you think is going to make you happy, that's what I would do. I never ask other people, what should I do? Unless it's Karen. And sometimes I don't even have to ask her. She tells me ahead of time. But anyway, that's an important thing to keep in mind. Now these are some photos from a fella named Craig who sent a beautiful email saying how much he enjoyed watching my paint videos, and he used all of the information on the tutorial videos to refinish one of the bikes in his collection. But he does have 6 two-strokes in his collection. And I said to him, please send me some pictures. Hey, I'm a two-stroke lover. So is Luciano. Well, a lot of people are. And he sent this really nice set of pictures in. And some of them are under restoration. Look at this 350. Beautiful condition. And every time I look at one of these now, Luciano's got the 2 sets of bodywork for his. And we did up a green one and we did up a blue one for him. And obviously it's an eclectic collection. He has a Ducati, more than one Ducati, a Multistrada, and some of these bikes really look like they're in mint condition. He looks like he has the true passion that we all share for keeping a bike nice and clean. Look at the beautiful photos, and he's got good photography skills, which is something I work on all the time. And the one I picked out of his collection to fall in love with here. Oh man. Next comment is from a fellow named, his handle is Learn Fast, and he's got a GS. He wanted to know why my calipers have Yamaha emblems on them. And I tried to explain to him that back in the day, in the 80s, Yamaha and Suzuki had a lot of interchangeable parts. And a lot of times, when you would go to replace a part, it would come with a Suzuki part number or a Yamaha part number. And you could, and the brake calipers happen to be one of the things. And of course, that means the brake, the puck's interchanged too. But also, if you look on Partzilla, you'll notice, a lot of people don't notice, you're looking for a part for a makeup bike, an 86 Kawasaki. The part that fits an 86, it's an 86, an 87, 88, 89, and 90. Now, what I found real helpful, the people at Partzilla, if you ask for tech help, they seem to know that, and they can save you an hour looking online and comparing the part numbers. And a lot of times they can tell you, not only does that fit, but the Suzuki part fits too. Because a lot of manufacturers, let's be honest, Suzuki doesn't make the calipers. Some other company makes them. So this is a thing, if you have that in your mind, it makes finding parts for older bikes a lot easier. And Partzilla, I have found super, super helpful. Could not be any more helpful, and everything they've steered me toward has been exactly correct. And they go back sometimes even further when you can't find it. There's still some parts they have for really older bikes. So always check with Partzilla and ask for the tech help if you're in question. That's a really good tip. Now, bikes like the RD that were very common in their time, they still have a lot of parts. And a good example is Economy Cycle still stocks. I got a headlight from them. I got various other little things, little rubber grommets and things I needed for this restoration. And it's always good to just look online, and maybe you'll find places that I don't even know about, but those parts are available. Now, I always try to offer what I think is the best advice, even if it doesn't sound like you don't want to hear the advice sometimes. And a fellow named John sent me a long email. He's a new rider. He wants to buy an 1100 1981 Suzuki. And he says he's only been riding 3 months on a 250. Now, I'm thinking, and I'm trying to offer the best possible advice. My best possible advice would be to buy a more modern, smaller bike. So it will not need as much maintenance or as much chance that something major would need to be replaced or repaired and you'd have to find parts. Getting an 81 bike, it's going to be not impossible, but hard to get parts for. Where if you buy, let's say, a 10-year-old 600 Yamaha or Kazuki or whatever, an SV 650 would be a great choice. Or any of the bikes, a mid-sized bike. Ride that for a year and ride the wheels off it. Go on some trips, hang out with some people with bigger, faster bikes, before you commit to a bike that's very big, very heavy, and very powerful. And that can get you in a lot of trouble. And if the thing with having an older bike for a first bike, if you're not used to working on bikes, as soon as there's a problem, you're in trouble. That's a bike you can't bring to the dealer and say, oh, fix it. Here, get the parts off the shelf. People that have older bikes, 40 and 30 and 40-year-old bikes, or people like Dale that have the even older ones, usually do a lot of the work themselves and know how to diagnose things and work on them and do that kind of work. So without that help, it's a tough road to hoe. So my suggestion, and I'm just going to repeat it, if you're a new rider and you're coming up from a 250, I would go to a mid-sized bike and ride it a year. Don't just ride it around a block and go, I'm ready for a Hayabusa. Ride it a year. And ride it. Don't just go up and down back to the local hamburger place. Find some twisty roads and find some people that know how to ride and try to stay behind them and figure out what the lines are and stuff. Anyway, John, I hope that's probably not what you want to hear. Probably wanted me to say, go buy the bike. It's not true. That's my best advice, believe me. Now, in that vein, J.A.K., Jack, I guess is his name, wanted to know if the Suzuki, the GS, uses a roller crank. Yes, they do. One of the reasons that engine is so bulletproof. If you go to rebuild a Suzuki GS 1100 crank, you find out there's 5 main bearings and they're each 125 each. So by the time you're done, it gets expensive. But they are bulletproof engines. And as far as I can tell, mine has got 76 now, a little over 76. And it just starts when you touch the button, and it's scary how good that engine is. Now, what always tells me if an engine is good too, if the guys that want to go drag racing, not road racing, because road racing, they don't want to overstress the engine to where it's a problem. Drag racing, they don't care, they let them break. They make 300 horsepower and they break. They put turbos on them and they break. And that's why I love about drag racing. And by the way, that's why I posted that video about the Don Garlits Museum. I was there. That is a fabulous place, and I got so much good feedback on that from people that had been there. And that's the whole thing, is the history of dragsters kind of coincides with the history of the development of motorcycles to these high performance, crazy amount of powered sport bikes we have now that are, I don't even know what fun it would be to ride some of them on the street if you don't have access to a racetrack. To ride around in traffic in rain mode with a 300 horsepower supercharged super bike, I'm not sure about that. But anyway, but some people do like it, so I don't want to say no. But anyway, another little tidbit, and a fella named Robert, just what I was talking about. I didn't plan this ahead of time. He's got 3 GSs that have survived the drag strip. Well, believe me, when you go to the drags, if you've never been to the drag, I've never gone over and over, and I did in the 70s, and you had better be ready to break some parts or you're not drag racing. And you better be ready to put some clutches in. And that's the fun of drag racing. Anyway, and Corey has a GPX 750R, needs to hook up the tank sender, the fuel lines, and various other things. And I thought, well, I don't have a GPX 750R, but I think what would be a really good source of information is the Partzilla SKUs. You go to Partzilla, look up the bike, the year, the model, and look at the SKU. And you can kind of see, oh, the bolt goes in this way, or the wire connects to that, or something. Or priceless information. And in the worst of all worlds, as I already shared, get at Partzilla, tap into the tech guy, wait online. You're going to wait online for 10 minutes. But write your question down, because they usually have a really good answer for you. And a lot of times when they don't have the part, they can tell you, well, we don't have the part. It's your next choice is eBay. Because I don't know any place else but Partzilla that has the kind of inventory that they have. But that's 3 good pieces of information in one little segment.
Now, related information, I have a GPX 750R. It's an 89. Now, Luciano is deciding that he's restoring a different year bike that the tank looks exactly the same. And he wanted the sending unit to the fuel gauge. And I took the tank off of my parts bike and took pictures and sent it to him. And the tank at the top looks exactly the same, but the sending unit and the petcock are in a different spot. So you always have to be careful. Anything like this, if you're looking it up on a SKU, you look up the right year GPX. It changes from year to year.
So here's the kind of question, useful information, something you can share with people. Doesn't cost you a penny to share it. And at the end of sharing it, you still have it. Pretty cool. A fellow named John. A lot of people named John. There's a lot of Johns around. I feel like I'm writing the Bible or something here. But anyway, how to tell if my 2-stroke is lean? Well, there's a real easy way. You'll find out. Maybe I don't have it here. Yeah, I do have it here. What am I talking about? Here it is. You burn a hole in a piston. That's there to remind me, don't do that. Or you seize the bike up. That tells you right away your bike's too lean. But before you seize it up, it's good to check the plugs. The plugs should not be white. That's number one. The biggest thing that you have a jetting issue other than the wrong main jet is you'll open the gas and the bike will just hesitate. It's probably lean, more than likely, but not guaranteed. The thing with 2-strokes is they can fool you. It can be the opposite way. So there's always a way you can figure this out, though. And supposedly, back in the day, Kenny Augustine days when we were drag racing 2-strokes and Ray had drag races and everything, The trick was always with an RD. If you could redline it in the first 3 gears, the main jet was fine. If it didn't get to the top gear, but if you redline it, that was just a rough test anyway. And it's always to be a little bit better rich than lean. But I can tell you from something that Joe Padula was the one who helped me figure this out. On my RD, I have a little notebook with little jetting changes I make for the summer, the winter. In the winter, I richen it up because I hate to go out and the bike is a little too lean. So what usually would happen is, on deceleration, you go up a hill, down a hill, doesn't matter, and you back off the gas, and as you're coming up, as soon as you shut the gas, it's called surging. When it surges, it usually means the bike is lean. It's starving for fuel. You can take the pilot jet adjustment and just make it richer. Now, screwing it in on an RD makes it richer. On some bikes, it's the opposite. So you got to look, make sure that you're not doing the wrong thing. But anyway, let's suppose, and there's another thing called, and I don't know the word, the right word, so I'll just make up a word, whatever this is. There is a way to tell in aviation, and it's in motorcycling the same way. Let's suppose you have a problem, and the bike doesn't do what you want it to do. And you don't know whether to make it richer or leaner. Okay, let's say you don't know whether to make the main jet richer or leaner. Well, there's an easy way. Let's say you start with 100. Put a 120 in, or a 110. You should really only do this one step at a time. Did it get better, the worse, or the same? If it got worse, obviously, go to a 95 or a 90. And you can use that process of, did it get better, did it get worse? If you raise the needle and to get rid of the surging, or you richen up the pilot jet to get rid of the surging, and it got better, that's the direction to go. Go a little bit at a time, until you're happy with it. Now, I've screwed with my, truth and avatar, I have screwed with my RD endlessly, because I'm always looking for it to be right on the razor, and when it'll do one little thing wrong, I go and fool with it and play with it and everything. And I overdo it. Sometimes you should just set it for a median condition and be happy with it, or you make yourself crazy. But and that could be I could use that as an excuse for when they put me in handcuffs. Anyway, there are several little things here that I thought I'd address right in this little segment. Shelley, it's the most common, very common question that I almost at least once a week, get this exact same question. He needs a stock GS exhaust. Well, where do I get one? Well, usually back in the day, people put 4 into 1 pipe and threw those in the dumpster. Now they're priceless. Well, a lot of times you can find them on eBay. They're usually pretty rusty and overpriced. But if you want one, I always say the bikes will always run better with a stock exhaust. That's just me. You can fight that and say, oh, they dyno out at 1 more power, they do this, or put a jet kit in, and it. But a GS especially, a totally stock GS is I don't know how you make that a whole lot better. And you always trade something away, mileage, or it doesn't take the gas right, or you wind up having to work on it all the time. A totally stock engine can be diagnosed, and you can figure out if there's something wrong with it easier too. So after you try eBay and they don't have it, Partzilla's always, maybe luck by luck, the guy knows that the 89 fits that. Now, in my GS, I have an 86 exhaust because I took the original exhaust and made carbon fiber mufflers for it. They lasted, I think, 7 years, but they eventually deteriorated because I had used a resin that was not really appropriate. It was not what I call the resin for life. Now I have the resin for life that I made the R1s from. That seems a lot better. But those old, I still have them, but it always ran better with the stock exhaust. The 86 is just a little more rumbly, but I didn't have to change the jetting. I didn't have to fool with anything, and the mileage didn't change. Man, Pete has just had this problem with his Bandit. He put in some kind of jet kit that cures whatever he was having, and the mileage dropped way out, and well, Pete, there you go. You're always playing a game with that. There's nothing better than a totally stock bike, in my opinion. And you've got all the bases covered there. And if you want a faster bike, just buy a faster bike that's stock. That's always sometimes the answer is right in front of you and you don't know it. Anyway, that Partzilla thing, that I always say too, if you buy an aftermarket exhaust, and Aaron did this with his GS, then you're chasing a jet kit. It's back, it does this, it's got a flat spot, the mileage is not right. You're always chasing something. Now, it's good if you're a top-level technician, you could diagnose that, or you have a friend like I have, Luciano, who can just take a ride on a bike and tell you right away what's wrong with it. Well, not everybody does. That's the problem. And before Kenny Augustine passed away, I always had the choice of calling him or having him ride the bike, and he'd tell me right away what's wrong with it. Not everybody has that choice. Or you have a friend who thinks he knows a lot about it. Maybe he doesn't. I don't know. Anyway, a great question. I wanted to answer this, and I didn't want to skimp on the answer. A fellow named Charles, he said, are those Chinese fairings any good? Do they hold up? Do they fit? Luciano has had several sets, and I've painted several of them. He's got an R6, he's got a Kawasaki. He had more than one Honda. I remember when he had 3 600 Hondas, he had 3 different sets we painted, one red, one black, I don't even remember. And they fit fine. They were, sometimes the hole doesn't exactly line up, you got to elongate the hole or something. But the downside was, some of them come without a tank cover. So let's pretend you want the body work, you crash your 600 Honda, you want the body work. The body work comes sometime painted a different color, or comes unpainted, I don't remember. The ones he had came painted to match the bike. But it didn't come that it was a match to the tank. His came red, so we painted them black. But it was easier than painting a tank. Then some came with a cover that just went over the tank. And that was really convenient. And then everything matches. So I gotta say, you know, I think they're about $400. I don't know how you can go too wrong with that. That's hard not to like that.
A photo from Henry Hill of his Guzzy. Did a lot of long distance traveling on his bike. We got more pictures from him coming later in the video.
Anyway, Vincent has an 800 GS 750E. He's 36 years old. The bike is 5 years older than he is. He wants to keep it till he's 77. Well, conveniently, I'm 77. And he wanted the magic formula. Here it is. And it's free. Eat vegetables, ride often, wear out tires, do oil changes. You will live to 77. I'm not sure I can put a real guarantee.
And if you're like Stefan in Romania and you're riding on-road, off-road bikes aggressively and on 1,100-mile rides away from home, you probably live a lot longer than me, maybe to 78.
I hope I don't screw up anybody's pictures, because in this segment I had a lot of pictures, and I write the number that the file you send comes in. By the way, if you want to see your bike on a video, easy peasy. You want to share it with me or share it with basically 11,000 people. Here's an easy way to do it. You have to send me an email to fzrguy72618@gmail. Once you send an email, it's got to be an attachment. Then I can make a first-rate copy that everybody will be able to view in nice, full detail.
And of course, thanks to everybody that's taken the time to make an attachment to attach to an email so that the photos come out like this, crystal clear, first rate, and thank you one and all.
It's really, if you embed a photo into an email, I can't use it at all. I got to take a picture of it while it's on the TV screen. Now, there's other people that are more computer literate that know how to move files and change things and put it, no. It gets too cumbersome. At the volume of stuff that I have to do, it has to be an attachment to an email, to that address that I put up on the screen.
Now, I always count the photos that I have taken, and I have spent a lot of time trying to improve my photography skills. And what those photos do is, by having them on my computer, they're wonderful memories of the life we've all shared. They're wonderful that I can look back and see things that, what did the bike look like with a different muffler on it, or a different set of wheels, or some of my friends that they're constantly working on their bike and changing it and making it different. And when we paint the bike, I like to see the pictures of what it looked like before we painted it, or we restore some fairings, or in this case we do the full 900-hour restoration on the FZR. But having these pictures and being able to share them is, to me, it's just a priceless part of YouTube.
Okay, I got a comment from a fellow named Thunderwiz. I don't know if that's his handle anyway. Anyway, Thunderwiz says, and the word here you have to remember. I'm going to try to help this guy out a little bit. If we're going to try to help each other, sometime you got to really explain it down to the barest detail. Stupid. It's stupid. I'm going to do this word for word. Stupid to check the air every time you ride your bike. Okay. That statement, I could help him figure out how to be more successful in life, but we'll do that at the end of this. First off, the reason for checking air every time you ride the bike, there's a simple reason. Because in our area, and I can think of people that have picked up sheetrock knife ends in their tires, nails, staples, there's just an endless supply of problems. And what happens if you on Wednesday you go for a ride, you pick up a sheetrock nail, and the next day that nail has got a tiny, tiny leak. So the next day you ride the bike, or in some people's case, they don't ride the bike for a whole week, or some people don't ride it till once a month. In a month, now you have 14 pounds of air in a tire. Hey, but you're in a rush, all the guys are coming down a block, they're all doing wheelies, you got to get out there and show them that you got a problem. But if you check it right before you go for the ride, it would tell you haven't picked up any nails. That's the whole idea of it. And it would also be in the winter months and the summer months, you might want to adjust it if you're doing any high performance riding. If you're not, just ride with whatever the manual says. So, but anyway, it's the point I wanted to make with this. It's the word stupid. Here's why, and I'm trying to help the fella, and I never want to make enemies in the world. I want to make friends. This is a great way to think about it. If two people have two bikes, one's red and one's blue, the guy that has the red bike should not say, it should not be stupid to have a blue bike. The problem with that is, someday you may want a blue bike, and now you said they were stupid. Now, and then you look stupid for no reason at all. Plus you lose friends. The word stupid kind of puts you off. We're not going to be real good friends. And I have found in life, I've gotten through life by trying not to make a lot of enemies, but make a lot of friends. Friends do a lot more things for you than enemies. Now, if this guy's a young guy, I don't know. Maybe he takes his bike and you ride down to the local pub on Friday night once a month. Who cares if you get a flat, you push it home. But the people I hang around with put 300 miles on in a day, like Jose, or like some of the people we went on these group rides. Holy mackerel, forever. And if you're far from home and you get a flat on a Sunday, when there's the nearest gas station is 50 miles away, all of a sudden checking that air in the tires looks like a lot better of a choice. Now, the problem, as always, is where we ride, some places there's no cell service. You get a flat, a lot of times you pick up a nail in a tire especially, and what will happen, it'll seal a tire. You'll be riding around for weeks before it goes, but eventually the centrifugal force of going the speeds you go at high speeds, that nail starts working its way out. It never works its way in. Centrifugal force goes out. Think about that. But anyway, what I wanted to say is it's a lot better if you disagree with somebody, and I hope my friend takes this to heart. If you disagree with them, if he would have sent this email and said, I prefer blank to checking the air in the tires, or I check it once a month. But you know what? Because I'm such a good guy, we could still be friends. And I hope you don't get a flat, and when you do get a flat, and I've done it, when I get a flat, I learn from it. And in fact, Joe Roselli got a flat right in front of the Ducati dealer one day with his MV Agusta. Right in front of the dealer. You can't be more convenient than that. You push the bike up the hill and put a tire on it. But if you're in Moodna and it's Sunday afternoon, the nearest gas station's a long push away, baby, and you call up these people that come with the vans, good luck with that too. Unless you have a friend that you can depend on. Like I have Luciano, at least so far. We don't know about that. That hasn't been put to the test in a while.
John is sharing some good product information here. He's got an MT-09, a 1 year new in mine, and he's been using this DuPont chain save. That's a wax that you can buy in Walmart or Amazon, anywhere. And it's about half the price of the product I use. I may try this, but that looks like it's a good tip and it doesn't sling.
And this comment came from Henry Hawk. And Henry, I know you love those Moto Guzzies, and Pokey does. I've had one. Hey, it's hard not to like them. But he sent me some pictures of a VMAX in a field of peanuts. I don't know what that's all about. If you love Moto Guzzies, why would you have a VMAX? I don't know about that. You know, that's we're gonna have to report you to the Moto Guzzi police. Anyway, Henry, I do appreciate your comments on the video almost every day, and obviously has a passion for all motorcycles. He's been all over the world with them, and he went on 8,000-mile rides and everything. I'm jealous. I'm really jealous.
Now, I know Henry has a great collection of Moto Guzzies. I've featured them on previous question and answered, and feel free to send me pictures of peanut farmers anytime. I love peanuts, but the VMAX and the peanuts, and I don't know. Jimmy Carter would be impressed. Anyway, that looks like a real nice clean VMAX, and I appreciate everybody that sends in pictures of their bike collection.
Anyway, I have a couple more little, I just was looking at this, a couple more little things. I don't want to leave anybody, if I leave anybody out, my apologies, because I'm really not a great record keeper. Anyway, John Klein, and we got other photos from John to share. He has an MT-09, a newer one. He made me aware of the fact that it has that auto blip, which I was not aware of because I don't have one. And I've never been able to go to a dealer and get a demo ride on it. So maybe, John, what you have to do is drive up here with your MT-09 and we'll switch. Maybe not. I don't know if you're going to come up from Georgia or wherever. Anyway, it doesn't really matter. He's got 10,000 miles, and he said this is the critical information. He's basically getting the same mileage with Michelin 5s as Pirelli Angels. Now, that's interesting because Vlad has, of course, everybody's got an opinion. I hate to say it, but we all have opinions about stuff. Now, I have found on my R1 specifically, the Michelin tires, the 2s and the 3s, really, it's at best I'd get 4,000 miles. But I do ride a little more aggressively than maybe I should. And a lot of factors determine how your tires wear out, the tire pressure, how aggressive you ride, if you ride full throttle. If you're a guy that every time you go through a corner you accelerate out of it at full throttle, or in my case I ride 30 miles up to the riding area, up and back basically every day, what happens is tires wear out. That's the problem. But anyway, to all the people that have sent me tire information, I homogenize it, I try to pass it on, and what I think is useful to share.
John sent some photos here that he looks like he's just like me, going up back roads here and checking out old barns and abandoned houses, cars with dead bodies in them. Nice farming area here, and apparently he's in a farm country. And he's riding the wheels off this MT-09. He's got 10,000 miles on it. So, John, you have my total respect that you have this bike and that using that throttle blipper and everything. But I know everybody I know that ever had an MT-09, and I mean there's nobody that at the end of it they didn't like their MT-09. So I always do enjoy sharing my passion for motorcycling on my channel, or whether we're in person or riding together as friends, or competing at the drag races, or whatever. And it's just, I have found the world of motorcycling to be a wonderful, eclectic conglomeration of people that all have different interests and different tastes. And when we all get together and check out each other's bikes and look at the differences, we can all be great friends, that's for sure. And thank you to everybody for sharing your passion and sharing the photographs. And please feel free to send me pictures, send me emails, criticize the video, or whatever. And thanks so much for watching.